I've seen this movie a shit ton, and I don't recall a huge difference between the director's cut and the final cut. They're very, very close.
Okay, so we're talking about Blade Runner. It's rated R. It's from 1982. It's sci-fi, of course. Runs at 1 hour and 50 minutes. It's got an 89 on Rotten. Written by David Peoples and Hampton Fancher. Directed by the great Ridley Scott. Starring Rutger Hauer, Harrison Ford, Edward James Olmos, Sean Young, Daryl-Hannah, and William Sanderson. Set in an alternative dystopian future of 2019, a group of synthetic humans referred to as replicants break free from their purpose of working off-world space colonies and swiftly return to Earth in search of extending their 4-year lifespan. Meanwhile, the Tyrell Corporation, who is undoubtedly responsible for the creation of the replicants, hire a former Blade Runner to hunt down this supposedly dangerous threat known only as the Nexus 6. The 1982 film Blade Runner is an adaptation of the 1968 novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. As time has passed, the original Blade Runner has become a staple within sci-fi culture, known for its uncompromising neo-noir style and even somewhat laying a structural basis for the cyberpunk subgenre. However, upon its release in the summer of 1982, the film failed to impress moviegoers and critics alike, pulling in just $41 million against a $30 million budget. As many fans may already know, there are 7 different cuts of the film, with the 2007 final cut being the only version that director Ridley Scott had complete creative control over. The film seems to be touching on themes of loneliness and what it really means and takes to be considered human, blurring the lines of good versus evil throughout. The cinematography of Jordan Cronenweth and the overwhelmingly effective score from Vangelis both play a key role in driving home the grimy yet beautiful backdrop of the futuristic Los Angeles. With 2017's Blade Runner 2049 sharing a similar fate financially, it makes you wonder if this concept continues to be ahead of its time and is destined to stay upon its subculture throne. With an anime-style television show called Blade Runner Black Lotus available now via HBO Max and a rumored live-action TV show coming down the pipe for streaming, it's very clear we have not seen the last of this neon-soaked world. 5 out of 5. Tears in rain. Thank you.
Referencing one of the most memorable lines of the film. An improv, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really? That was an improv?
I'm pretty sure that was. It's in my notes somewhere. And I will find that for you. Prior to his death, Roy Batty, which is Rutger Hauer's character, has a lengthy monologue that had been present in people's rewrites of Fancher's original screenplay. Hauer felt it was too technical and that it didn't create any dramatic impact, so he jettisoned most of it, only keeping certain parts he liked. And then he improvised one of, if not the most memorable line in the film. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. It's such a beautiful moment in the film.
It is. It is. It's arguably the most iconic.
Yeah. And not just his performance in the scene, but like the Vangelis score that is underneath that scene is beautiful. Hauer is great in the movie.
As he's always was, really.
And if I'm not mistaken, he always claimed that Blade Runner was his favorite movie that he had been in.
Wow. I don't know, man. The Hitcher's pretty good.
Hitcher is pretty great, but I don't think the Hitcher ever had the impact that Blade Runner has had.
Also,
unfortunately.
Before it slips my mind, and I don't know if you ever put this together when you first saw the original Sin City, but Marv, aka Mickey Rourke, kills Rutger Hauer's character in Sin City the way that Batty does in Blade Runner. So do you think?
Oh, that's right.
Do you think that's was like a nod to Blade Runner and Ridley Scott?
Maybe. I'd have to go back and flip through that original graphic novel and see if that's how he gets killed in that one. But pushing your thumbs into someone's eyes, what a fucking awful thing to do. Whenever I see that, like in TV or the movies, I'm just like, Jesus, that must be a shitty way to go.
Have you ever seen, trailing off a bit here, have you watched 28 Weeks Later?
28 weeks for sure. But are you referring to 28 Days Later? Because Cillian Murphy like kills one of the guys in 28 Days Later. I think he kills Christopher Eccleston like that.
I had forgotten about that. They do that in the first one too, but in the second one, the wife who is immune ends up being like I think it's towards the end of the film, her husband who abandoned her in the beginning of that movie ends up getting, or she infects him or something, and they're locked in a room together. You remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, and he does that to her. Obviously, he's a zombie, but he ends up doing, and they show it super graphically, and still haunts me.
It's a fucking awful thing to do. And yeah, and I remember that from 28 Days Later, that Cillian Murphy kills someone like that. Ugh. But so why did I pick this movie?
You tell me, man. I mean, or it's the anniversary, correct?
For starters, this week, depending on when you post, it'll be probably within a day or two of the official 40th anniversary of the release of the film. 40
years. We have to note that this came out around the orbit of another incredible sci-fi classic.
The exact same day, to be exact.
Well, actually, two. I don't know if it was E.T. and The Thing. And
The Thing and Blade Runner open up on the same day, which is June 25th.
Okay.
Of 1982. We talked about this last year when we talked about Poltergeist. Poltergeist and E.T. opened up within a week of each other. The summer of 1982 was fucking stacked because E.T., Poltergeist, Wrath of Khan, Blade Runner, The Thing, Conan the Barbarian, they're all out within about a month of each other. And it blows my mind. Okay, E.T. was on June 11th, which means Poltergeist was June 4. The Thing and Blade Runner opened up 2 weeks after E.T. No wonder they weren't big hits, because E.T. was the biggest thing on the planet.
And it was family friendly, so...
Yes, definitely not like The Thing. There's not a whole lot of terrible shit in Blade Runner, but it's probably a little over a lot of people's heads. I mean, it definitely was over people's heads at the time, and it was probably over a lot of kids' heads. But yes, that summer of 1982 is insane. Like, all of these sci-fi horror classics are all out at the same time. But it is the 40th anniversary. It's also, like I said, it's one of my favorite films. It's an all-time sci-fi classic. I've told you on last month's podcast, this movie has been talked to death. We're probably bringing nothing new to the table, but I did want to highlight it for a lot of those reasons. And that's why it's first in the lineup of our first official Summer of Sci-Fi. That's my relationship to this movie and why I wanted to do it. But how do you feel about this movie, Wesley?
I feel like the cast is incredible, and you can see, like, when you watch it, especially through the lens of today, its impact with the set design alone, where, you know, even with the rain and the dinginess of how they portrayed LA, it's just it's amazing. And I feel like it's the longevity of that, and you're seeing it, whether it be subconsciously in other people's work, but I feel like it's still relevant today, you know, as far as like the cyberpunky stuff in it. And then of course I've always loved like noir tales kind of like this, and the fact that they, you know, back then, instead of doing it, you know, in the past, they jumped to the future. And of course it's always fun to see how filmmakers or us envision the future before we get there, because we're already past 2019 and it, in our world looks nothing like Blade Runner. So it's go ahead.
In fact, we might never see rain out here in the Southwest again. And every time I watch this movie, I'm like, oh, it's like pouring rain there. I wished we had that weather now.
Like nonstop rain.
Every single scene it's raining.
And it even reminds me of even though The Crow is a bit more gothic, but even just that style, I feel like even there, in a different kind of genre, it's still, you can see that Blade Runner kind of stamp.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like The Fifth Element for sure. That first act is very much a Blade Runner riff.
I think it's funny. This movie, it's definitely, I think you might have already said this during this podcast, but it's not going to be for everyone. It's very intellectual, very dialogue driven, but at the same time very visual, and it doesn't rely really on action, at all.
Yeah, absolutely. But that by no means that it's boring.
It's not.
It's such a good movie. As far as I'm concerned, it never drags. It's under 2 hours. But yeah, there's more sci-fi than there is action. And if I'm not mistaken, the reason this did not do so well is because I think audiences were expecting an action film.
So you think it was just that audiences felt misled with what they thought it was going to be?
Yeah. Here it is. Sorry for the pause there. I was looking for that specific note. Yeah, in my notes, critical reaction to the film was mixed upon its release in 1982. While some praised its complexity and predicted that it would be considered a future masterpiece, which it is, others claimed that the plot was secondary to the special effects, the pace was slow, and that Warner Brothers had misleadingly marketed the film as more of a science fiction action-adventure film and not kind of this like heady film, as you said, that we got.
Yeah.
But it's very much in the themes of, kind of what makes us human. Why are they not humans? Why are we humans besides the obvious? And as the film goes on, there's definitely those questions. As Batty says to Deckard at the end, this is what it's like to live in fear. And, when you live your life as as a slave. I'm trying to remember his exact line, but that's pretty much what the Nexus 6 replicants were off-world slave labor. But then, there's the scene earlier where, where obviously Rachel is a replicant, and she doesn't know it at the start of the film. But then later on, when she's in Deckard's apartment and she's talking to him, she says, have you ever taken that test, the Voight-Kampff test that's kind of meant to figure out who's a replicant, because it's an empathy test. So they're trying to play up on human emotions, and that's why replicants won't pass it, is because they're not human, so they don't think like humans. They don't have, that empathy. And she asks Deckard, have you ever taken that test? Just trying to kind of tell him that, what? I can take it, and you can figure out I'm a replicant after, 100+ questions, but have you ever taken it? What does that say about you and your humanity?
That's what's interesting about this. It's they kind of flip. Like when you start, you think it's kind of a cut and dry, Harrison's Deckard is the good guy, and he's going after like the big bad with Batty. But then, as the plot unfolds, Deckard starts to kind of question like his integrity and what he's doing, and if he is actually doing the right thing anymore once he kills that first woman, Zora, I believe.
Zora, oh yeah, man, that's something I wanted to bring up. First of all, like, her killing is brutal.
It is.
I mean, all the two replicants that he retires, we spoke about it earlier. Retirement. The two that he retires, Zora